I am guessing you have a high-stakes presentation, either a board meeting or a pitch you want to deliver, a meeting with a potential client, and you know this meeting might actually change your life. But let's be honest, you may not be prepared. Actually, you are not ready. Most of you will just go wing it, over rely on some slides, but if a tough question comes, you ramble through the answers and then you get out of there wondering what might have gone wrong. But we are about to change that. I am going to give you a way in which you can prepare effectively for a high-stake presentation so that you can get that job, you can change your life, you can get that massive success. Are you ready? Let's go. Okay, so the first thing we are going to talk about is knowing your audience. You have to know your audience. The second thing we'll talk about is the opening and the closing. We will then talk about prepping your presentation as if you are preparing for the Olympics. We'll then talk about storytelling because that is something which is super important when it comes to delivering any speech. From there, we are going to talk about anticipating the curveballs because, to be sincere, something might go wrong in your presentation. And we'll then talk about how to close powerfully, okay, and to follow up after the presentation, because in high-stake presentation, it doesn't end after you leave the stage. It ends after you close the deal. So let's start. The first thing, knowing your audience. We are told that you should know your audience as you know your favorite coffee order or your favorite meal. You know the exact ingredients you put in there. You know if the amount of spices that should be in the food, in the dish. That is how you are supposed to know your audience. For instance, do they like data? Are they data-driven people? If that is the case, you have to use data presentations. Those people like engineers, people like CEOs, people like accountants who want to hear the numbers, use them as much as possible. And if they are visionaries, paint them a nice picture into the future, something that they can see in their mind. You have to make sure that you are talking to this person. You don't give a presentation just how you think you should give it, but based on how this other person is. For instance, you can give them a persona. This can include a name. So whoever your audience will be, give them a name. Let's say you call them Negative Nancy, and then say their attributes. Negative Nancy knows it all, has had it all, doesn't like people, it doesn't like fluff. So what do they want to hear? They want to hear you go straight to the point. They want to hear you talk about their pains, their frustrations, their goals, and how you are going to achieve whatever they have in mind. Okay. The next thing is the opening and the closing. I want you to picture the opening as a tattoo. It is hand to erase. And I want you to take the closing as, let's say, the mic drop moment. Okay? This is something that the people will go home with. It's something you want them to remember. And these are the few ways you can open your presentation. The first thing, you have to hook them with a surprising statistic. For instance, did you know that 70% of people fear public speaking? Okay, that's not surprising anymore. I believe a lot of people have said it, but you get the point. Something else is a bold statement. For instance, I am not black. That's bold. It's a statement. And then you go on and prove why you think that. Okay, I can't prove why I think that, but you get the point also. Another thing is a relatable story. You can tell them a story, maybe a story of someone who is just like them, who is drowning in the same problems, who will overcome, and there's a section about stories, so I won't talk about that more. So a relatable story, something they can picture and relate with. And of course, you can have a provocative question. This is a question that will make them ask or question some of their beliefs. And after that, of course, you can explain to them what you think about the same. Then we move on to the closing. As I've said, the closing is something they will remember. They might not remember what you've said entirely, but make sure that they go with something from your closing. These are the few methods you can close a presentation. The first one is a call to action. You've probably heard this before, a call to action, CTA, CTA, CTA once again. What that means is something that they should do after what you've just talked about. For instance, let's say you are talking to a potential client. A call to action might be maybe, when can I send you these documents so that you can sign, or when do we start? Something like that. Or let's have a meeting on Friday to discuss something else or something of that sort. You can also have a story. Yes, you can end with a story. And the best type of story to end with here is a callback story, where you call back to something you started with. Or you can just end with a famous story. You can tell them, for instance, Abraham Lincoln, or a very well-known story. And finally, you can leave them inspired by maybe using a quote. You can tell them, Maya Angelou said, people don't remember what you say, they remember how you make them feel. Okay, so you probably won't say that in a bond meeting, but you get the point, right? Let's go to the next big idea, and that is preparing as if you are prepping for the Olympics. So if you are prepping for the Olympics, I'm sure you wouldn't just show up to the Olympics and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to sprint 100 meters and win. That would be insane. You are gonna lose. Okay? So if you know you are gonna lose there, don't come to this room unprepared. You're also gonna lose the deal. So what do you do here? You make sure that you know your material from the start to the end. By knowing your material, I don't mean memorize. If you memorize, you will forget. You will blank, you will cry. Or you will feel sad if you don't cry. What you should do is make sure that you are practicing the main points. And you don't have to always practice from the start, because if you always practice from the start and then something happens and you have to go and stop the practicing, then come back, start from the start, you will have practiced the start like 30 times and only 3 times for the main part and the final part. So make sure that you can start anywhere. You can start with your point number 3, then go to point number 1, come back to point number 2, and at any point of your presentation, make sure you can talk about a certain point without overly relying on another point. So make sure you know your material very well, because sometimes you are told, can we jump to the most important part for the interest of time? It's very important. I will be talking about all these in a later video. You can tell me if you'd like to hear about that. Okay. Something else when practicing is to record yourself. So I'm not a big fan of practicing in the mirror, but it's useful in some instances. For instance, you will catch some weird gestures that you might be using. You might catch your face with a very bad impression as you are recording. So make sure you're practicing, you are catching all these things. But the thing I love about recording yourself is you can watch it back, and it's always good to watch it back as a third person. If you don't like what you hear in that recording, you need to practice a lot more, because they probably won't like what they will hear also. Okay, and also if you catch the filler words, you will be able to correct them. If you find yourself repeating something more often than necessary, you can correct them. So recording is definitely better than practicing in a mirror. Something else which is useful is the dress rehearsal, and people don't talk about this enough. This means that you can wear what you are going to wear for the presentation. That way you'll know, okay, can I walk in these shoes? Are these pants too tight? Is this shirt comfortable enough for me? Okay, if I put my hair like this, will I be able to present comfortably? There's nothing crazy about that. But if you know, for instance, you are going to practice in a very different place, like a rugged ground, as opposed to where you'll be presenting, don't wear your heels, they might break, okay? But you get the point, right? I think I should stop saying that. All right, the next thing is to anticipate the curveballs. The curveballs are the things that might happen which you don't want to happen. For instance, when you are presenting, you have your PowerPoint there and then the projector just won't work or your laptop collapses. What should you do? It's wise to have printed handouts. That way you can hand it over. Another thing that I prefer is to have stories. So instead of the slides, I get the stories. I can tell them and they can fill them and everything will be good. Something else that might happen wrong, and this is something that has happened to me, is when you call the client by the wrong name or you reference the wrong company. I did that. Oh, it was embarrassing. But you do correct them. It's going to be sorry. Okay, so I'm very sorry about this. You can joke about it too. If you know jokes land well with you. If they don't. That's why I didn't say you start a presentation with a joke when I was starting, because jokes don't go well for everybody. Okay, something else that can maybe go wrong is you get a tough question, a question you just can't answer. So you can tell them, maybe, I like your question, but I don't have an answer for that right now, but I will get back to you. Or you can tell them, this is my thought process for that question. Or you can also politely ask them to tell you to expand a little bit more, mostly for people with a very functional brain. I'm saying that because some are very funny. People with functional brain, when asked to explain or to repeat the question, they will repeat it in other words which are more understandable. There are others who will just repeat the question as if they are reading it somewhere. Okay, if they are reading it somewhere, they will repeat as it is. But if it's a question I've come up with, I should repeat in other words for this person to understand it even better. That way, you can get a better understanding of the question, and maybe you'll find that you had an answer for that. Something else is, if time runs out and you have not yet finished your presentation, what should you do? Okay, I have another session I'll do about managing time and time constraints when presenting, but make sure you've had a clear message about what you are talking about. So there's also another presentation of this manner about having a key message. A key message is very important because it's the one thing people should remember, even if they forget everything else. So make sure you have all that in mind before you start your presentation. The step number 5 is about storytelling. So there are very many storytelling ways, and you might not need very many stories in a high-stake presentations sometimes. For instance, a board meeting. But you can throw a story in there because people say facts will tell, but stories will sell. So how do you do with stories? There are, as I've said, many storytelling techniques, but I will give you one today, and you know this one, it's the hero formula. So this is where you have a villain, you have a hero, and you have the happily ever after. For instance, a good example I can think about is Harry Potter. Okay, I'm a Potterhead. So those who don't know Harry Potter, there's a villain, a bad guy, Voldemort. Voldemort kills Harry Potter's parent while trying to kill Harry Potter. Now Harry Potter is forced to live with his aunt and uncle, and they mistreat him. They hide the secrets about his parents' real cause of death until at the age of 11, where one person comes and tells Harry Potter the truth and invites him to a school, Hogwarts, where he goes, meets friend Hermione and Ron. There are many challenges along the way. Harry Potter meets either Voldemort or his servants in the school year, each school year, until one day he finally leaves school, goes to look for the Horcruxes, doesn't matter, of Voldemort, kills them so that he can finally kill Voldemort, and he succeeds to do that, and he marries Ginny and they live happily ever after. I think that was quite good. Yeah, maybe it was. So that's an example of a hero's journey. But you should also say what he did to vanquish this kind of enemy. Although I've mentioned killing the Horcruxes. Okay, so make sure that you have a story in there. You can draw stories even when giving a presentation or when reading numbers, and I will have a session about stories when presenting serious information. Something else about a presentation, and we are almost done here, is owning the room. You have to own the room, and this also comes in with imposter syndrome. Sometimes you feel like you're not the best person to give this presentation, the best person to be doing this kind of work. You don't know if they will accept you, if they will hear you. Things like those happen to human beings. So first, you don't need to feel confident to be confident. You can act confident. By act confident, I don't mean like the traditional ways of acting. There are things you can do. For instance, walk the room confidently in the shoes that won't make you fall on the stage. Okay, shoulders back, hand up, and then project your voice. Make sure your voice comes from the diaphragm and not from the throat, because from the throat it will come something like this. But if you draw it in from the diaphragm, it will be more powerful than usual. By the way, confidence is contagious. If you are confident, they will be confident. They will want to listen to you. If you are not, they will not want to listen to you. They will be wondering why they are there in the first place. Something else is maintain eye contact as you speak. And you don't have to stare at someone. And also, if you don't feel okay maintaining eye contact, like directly, you can look at this space here between the eyes. Someone will think you are looking at them. No one will ever know you are looking at this bone. I don't know its name. Or the skull. It's perfect. Okay, and of course, slow down. Do not rush. If you rush through your presentation, someone will know you are nervous. So pause. Pausing gives them an opportunity to think back to what you've previously said, to digest it, and to get ready for the next point. So it's very important to always pause. Finally, we have the last step, which is following up. So we say in high-stake presentation, the presentation doesn't end when you walk off the stage. It ends when you have closed the deal. So how do you follow up? You can follow up through email. Okay? You can write first, thank them for showing up and listening to you. Then you can have a summary of some bullet points. You can have that in PDF or as a PowerPoint presentation. Have that. Any questions that weren't answered when you are speaking, answer them. By the way, you can put it in there and then emphasize your call to action. Maybe let's talk on Friday or something like that. You can personalize the message. For instance, Mr. Gary, during the presentation, you saying this, it's a very good point, and here is something to add on to that. Or about your question, here is something I can add about that. And if you do that, you are set for a high-stake presentation. Everything will go right. So make sure you have prepared. It's always starts with preparation. Prepare, have the right mindset, and then go forward and give the best presentation you can, because you are not just delivering a presentation, you are delivering an experience. Thank you.